And with some of the content is sexual in nature, right?
No. What we do for income at the moment is sexual in nature, but it's just between me and her.
Welcome to Crime Circus. My name's Baby Drip, and I'm filling in for Drip Drop. This is the interrogation of the father of the year.
Yeah.
He is the baby daddy to Data. He is the porn star's boyfriend.
Oh my God.
Stay tuned until the end for an update.
Seat right there. So like the sign,
off my phone.
alright. So like the sign says, everything here's audio and video recorded.
Obviously for both of our safety.
Correct.
Right. I hate the power button on my phone broke, so I have to remove the damn battery to get
Gosh. Alright, so today is Tuesday, February 17th, 2015. It's about 11:54 a.m. I'm Detective Sullivan, and you're
Stephen Michael Williams Jr.
Stephen Michael Williams Jr. With a V or PH?
A PH. First person actually asked that. Everybody just spells it with a V automatically.
Stephen Michael Williams Jr.
Did she get taken in or what?
Yeah, we'll go over all that here. And what's your birthday, Stephen?
February 29th, 88.
And you go by Michael, right?
Yes.
So being this is the interview room, also you have to advise you your rights, okay? So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer, have him or her present with you while you're being questioned. Cannot afford to hire a lawyer. One will be appointed to represent you before any question if you wish. Do you understand those rights?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So prior to us talking to you today down in Glendale, we have made mention that, you know, you and Amanda both have an attorney representing you on
The dependency case.
the dependency case. And even though both of you have the attorney for that case, both of you agreed to come and speak to myself and the other detective. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. So knowing what your rights are, knowing that you have that representation, are you still willing to speak with me today?
Yes. If you ask any questions that I feel I cannot answer, I will, again, request an attorney for it, because I know a lot of times some of these questions seem very pointed and whatever for your investigation. So.
Well, I mean, it's
just if there's one I'm uncomfortable with, I'll let you know.
I understand.
The wording a lot of times is pointed and whatever.
Look, I'm a straight shooter, man. Okay, I'm not here to play games. Okay, you know, I have a job to do, like I told you down at your house.
Yes.
Okay, I have an investigation to do, and through my investigation, this is what the findings have been. And you know, when we get to that point, I'll tell you what they are. You know, the wishy-washiness, you know, around the attorney, I mean, that concerns me. Okay, because I'm limited on things that I can say, things that I can even ask you. You know, basically, you know, you throw the attorney word out there, I can't ask you a question at all. Okay?
Right.
So I mean, all I can do, you know, I advise you your rights. You said you understood your rights. Okay? Also said that you have an attorney appointed to represent you for the dependency case. Okay? Have you met with that attorney?
Not yet. Actually, I was supposed to be able to try and meet with them today.
Okay.
And that was one of the things I was supposed to arrange today, but you guys came to the house before I even had a chance to make phone calls, so.
Okay. So with everything that you got going on today, as far as what your rights were, having the attorney assigned, you haven't talked to him yet, you know, I have additional questions that, you know, the doctor has asked me to ask to try to figure some things out additionally, you know, and obviously you would like to know what happened to your son. So you know, I'm here to not only get some more information from you guys about your past with data and Q, and information that I can pass on to the doctor, but I'm also here today to give you the information that you've been waiting for to hear. You know, what happened to your son? Why did your son die? Okay, I'm prepared to do all that today, but I got to know that, you know, anything that I ask you and the answers obviously can be something that down the road potentially could be held against you. Okay?
I'm aware of that. That's why I said, like, I'm willing to talk and answer questions, but if I feel like one is pointed or something, that's...
None of my questions are going to be pointed toward you. They're just going to be on information regarding different eating habits, different, you know, just basically basic information about...
yeah, all that stuff about, I'm okay with answering that. It's just that, like I said, if there's anything you say that makes me feel uncomfortable, I'll let you know. And then from there we can just move on. And obviously, if I feel like an attorney is necessary, then I'll let you know. I'm willing to. I want to help out with what I can do. I want to, you know, and I want to know definitely what's going on, and I want to help out with the investigation. I have nothing to hide. I know in this type of a situation, you know, if anything is misspoken or misunderstood or whatever, that could go against me. So
well, I'm not here to trick you.
No, I know. That's why if there's something that I can't if I don't understand it or if I can't answer it or whatever, I'll let you know.
Okay. So right now, you're agreeing to go forth and you're willing to talk to me?
Yes.
Right now. Okay. So let's. I know you met with some detectives there the night prior, or the night of, and I wasn't there. So they kind of got some background stuff that they kind of, you know, told me, I guess, bits and pieces of. But I just kind of like to go back through all that. So how long have y'all lived here?
Well, before the incident with Data, it was about 3 months. So we're going on almost 4 months.
Okay. And where did y'all move from?
Santa Rosa, California.
Okay. And who all moved up here?
Just me, her, and babies. Well, Data wasn't born yet.
Correct.
So he was born here.
But Q. Okay. And y'all lived down in Glendale. So, and your Q's father also?
Yes.
Okay. So, was there any complications with Q when he was born?
No, he was considered premature because he was born about a month early, but he was, 5 pounds, 5 ounces. He was real healthy, passed all of his tests and everything, and they let us go. They ended up calling one of the hospitals we left because they were trying to put her into a C-section without telling her why. So we left that hospital and went to a different one for a second opinion, where they actually told us that he had some sort of growth syndrome that's pretty common in the late end of the pregnancy, so they ended up doing a C-section for him. But they actually were informative to us and let us know what was going on instead of just trying to force her into getting it done without explaining anything.
Okay. Was there any prenatal care with Q?
Yeah.
Okay. And the post-medical care after he was born, did Q receive that?
Yes.
Okay. Any medical problems at all within Q's 2 years?
He's gotten a cold here and there, and nothing serious. His older brother's the one that always wound up in the hospital, always had a habit of falling off of things, cracking his little head open and stuff.
Okay. And that's through your...
That was the oldest one.
And that's through your prior marriage,
yeah,
right?
that was my prior marriage.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he's always been a little rough and tumble, but he's never gotten, seriously injured or really ill before. What you told me about how sick he was, actually, honestly, it's as sick as he's been his whole life, so.
Yeah, and I mean, he's sick, or at least he was, but I don't know that he was that sick, but just with the coldness and everything, the
Right.
doctor just wanted him kind of indoors
Yeah.
and, let the antibiotics take over and get rid of the cough and the runny nose and stuff like
He's
that.
never had to take antibiotics or anything before, so that's...
Well, living in Oregon is different than San Jose.
Yeah.
So, how is Q fed?
Well, we go shop every day, sometimes twice a day. We cook fresh food every day.
But I'm saying when he was an infant.
Oh, as an infant, we gave him formula.
Was he breastfed at all?
We started with the breastfeeding. He didn't really like it. It was too slow for him. Because once we tried the formula, because she ran out of breast milk on the first night, or not the first night, first couple nights, she ended up, he drained her, and we had to switch going by baby formula because her breasts just weren't producing as much as he needed.
Okay.
And so and after that, he just didn't want nothing to do with the breast milk. So
yeah. So
formula was quicker.
How long do you think you guys breastfed Q?
She kept trying to breastfeed him for a good 3 months.
3 months.
But like I said, he didn't always take to it.
Okay.
It's more of a comfort and attachment thing than a feeding thing.
And how did he do on the formula?
He loved it. He ate it up, man. As soon as he tasted it, his little eyes lit up, man, and he was just super, super excited because it was obviously tasty for him, and it was, and he could eat quickly instead of at the slow pace of breastfeeding.
Gotcha. Talk about, what's the name of your guys' business?
Broken Wing Productions.
Broken Wing Productions. Okay. Is that an LLC or?
Yeah, in California, we started to get we didn't got to finish getting all the paperwork in line because we ended up having to move. But we were working on getting that limited liability partnership or whatever, LLC.
LLC, yeah.
Yeah.
So what exactly does that business entail?
It's entertainment company, mostly fire dancing, go-go dancing. We throw events like small parties, get-togethers, things like that for people. It's just basically just any and all entertainment. I mean, we're considering doing weddings, things like that. It was,
And with some of the content, it's sexual in nature, right?
No, what we do for income at the moment is sexual in nature, but it's just between me and her. So.
But it's you do it live, right, on the internet?
Yeah.
And so how does the pay system work? How are you making money?
It's tip-based. So we don't get like an actual hourly wage. So basically it's all dependent on our ability to market our shows. We mostly we have to go on Twitters and Facebook and whatever and say we'll be on this time and whatever, and then our fans will see that and come and tip us and whatever.
So what are some of the things that you guys do?
Well, let's see, recently we've been doing this thing. It's it's called Epic Porn Crawler, we call it. It's like a tabletop type of a game. Basically, it's designed after Dungeons and Dragons, but it's using their little apps and bots and things that you can set up incentives basically for people to tip. So I turn around and I set it up as almost like a Dungeons and Dragons type of a thing, and basically people will tip for different things. Like we'll have a tip menu where they can tip for things like to get a booby flash or a close-up of my junk or whatever. But, I mean, all this is done behind, closed doors, so.
So, I guess on average, how do you get paid?
About every 2 weeks we get paid. Usually on average I make between 50 and 100, and she usually makes between 100 and 600.
Oh, wow.
So.
Okay.
But we both work around 30 hours in a week, so.
Gotcha. So in the past, what are some of the different things that you guys have done?
All sorts of things. Actually, it's mostly just trying to figure out what it's going to be exciting for the viewers, you know. It's not generally actually any sex, really. I mean, on occasion we do, because it's part of it. It's adult industry, whatever. But typically it's just us hanging out and chatting and, you know, being playful towards each other and joking with people. And because, like I said, it's tip-based, so we really wait. It's a lot of waiting and waiting and waiting and chatting with just whoever's in the chat room. So, but
is there a required amount that they're to tip on, depending on what the activity is?
Sometimes. I mean, we can set it up that way. A lot of the other models do. The only thing that we have is the required amounts, really, like that's set permanent, is we have the tip for love thing, which is 33 tokens, which is just them showing their support, not asking for anything, just showing their support and the fact that they, you know, enjoy our show and everything. And then the other one we call is the fast tax, which is 10 tokens, which somebody made a joke about it a few years back when we first started, but it's like if somebody's sitting there and they're sitting there and touching themselves or whatever. I have no idea if I'm sure some of them are, I don't know, they're on the other side of the chat menu, so I don't know. But anyway, so we sit and we'll call people up, be like, hey, you're typing real slow or whatever, you gotta pay that fast tax, you know, like that sort of thing.
So what does FAST stand for?
Like, basically it's masturbating, touching yourself, whatever.
It doesn't.
It was just something that somebody had joked about one day, and it just kind of stuck. So.
Gotcha. And how long have you been doing that?
Well, shoot, I've been doing, let's see, about 3 years we've been doing it.
And you started in California and just brought it up with you when you came up here.
Yeah, because we haven't found actual work here yet. We don't have a car to get into the other big towns, and there's not very often that a job opens up in Glendale.
Sure.
Happens occasionally, but generally they hire somebody immediately because small town.
Correct. Yeah. Have you looked for work?
Yeah, I actually went to the what do you call it, the KlLLER, I believe it's called, the little grocery store right there. Well, they ended up, one of their employees left, or they let him go, or something, I'm not sure, but as soon as I noticed, I asked about it, but other than that, it's just been looking on Craigslist, trying to find, you know, places that are hiring, but the trouble is I don't have a vehicle.
Correct.
So everything's all in Canyonville, or Roseburg, or, you know, 25, 50 miles away.
Gotcha.
Or it's things that aren't a job. It's like side jobs, like come clean my yard for this much money, and you know, this stupid Craigslist works.
Gotcha. Sure. So get to Data here. So when Data was born, where was he born at?
He was born actually in the hospital here in Roseburg.
Okay. And being y'all don't have an automobile, how did y'all get there?
Ambulance.
Ambulance. So did something happen to where?
She just went into labor, and a couple of days previous she was having, you know, the Braxton Hicks and whatever, you know, so we figured it's going to come soon, and so we spent a few days trying to find a ride, and everybody kept backing out, and so finally, when she went into actual labor, we were like, yeah, no, we have to call the ambulance. And, you know, fortunately, the Glendale Ambulance District, most of those guys live there, so it was real quick for them to get there.
Okay, and how long were y'all at Mercy before Data was born?
Oh, let's see, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. It wasn't very long. He came quick. So,
do you remember what day and when you called for the ambulance? Roughly about what time?
Sure, the day he was born, I believe it was the 22nd. No, it's the 22nd, 20. Sorry. All these dates. Well, we called roughly at 10 in the morning. Roughly. I didn't really pay attention to the time. I'm just guessing off of the lighting outside. It was sure. Everything was just quick. His whole life was like that fast.
Okay. And what day was that on?
Shoot. What was it? I don't actually honestly remember off the top of my head. He was born on,
This is a Crime Circus presentation.
I'm horrible with this. I don't know the exact date.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah, sorry. I'm horrible with dates.
No, that's fine. So when he was born, was there any complications with the
With the labor, there wasn't really. I mean, there was. I guess they had to have her on all fours because he was I guess he had the umbilical cord wrapped around him.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to relieve the pressure on that, they had to put her on all fours instead of laying on her back.
Wow.
So other than that, there was no complications. And even then, he came quick. And once he was out, he was, doing his babies do when they're born.
Got you. So was there any medical issues, Data, once he was born?
No, he passed all of his tests and everything with flying colors, as the doctor said.
Okay. And how long were you guys in the hospital until you went back home?
They kept us there for 2.5 to 3 days.
Okay. And during that 2.5, 3 days, how was Data fed?
Breastfed.
And did he have any issues with that?
No.
Do you recall if you met with any specialists, like a lactation consultant or anything to?
No, only the pediatrician.
Okay.
And he basically just came in to tell us the test results and everything, and told us we had to wait an additional night for his last test, and then we ended up going in the morning.
Okay. So as far as the breastfeeding, as far as Data, there was no issues with him latching on, taking the milk, no issues with Amanda producing milk?
No, she had, for a couple of days, one of her breasts was swollen unnormally, but
I'm just saying,
she was still producing and everything, and
yeah, but I'm saying just in the hospital.
But not in the hospital, no.
Everything was fine.
Yeah, everything was working good.
Okay, so then when you get home, how are things with Data?
Everything went good. Like I said, everything except for there was a couple days, 2-3 days, where she was having some trouble, and during that time, actually a little before that even, she was uncomfortable. She couldn't tell how much he was eating, so she started every feeding she would manually produce milk into a bottle, so you'd get 3 to sometimes 4 ounces of food, but just that way we could keep track of it.
And how long did that start?
That was going. Well, she was kind of nervous about it because, like I said, she couldn't keep track of how much was coming out when he was breastfeeding, but that was basically the whole time that we had him. She would do it, like when she was working or whatever, and I was watching him, she would do it. So there was a couple days, like maybe 2-3 days, she was kind of concerned about her production, but so even when she was feeding him during those days, she would pump into a bottle so she could keep close track on it. And then once he'd eat the 3 or 4 ounces or whatever, then she would let him try and latch again.
Okay.
So,
and how often would she feed him?
about every 2 hours.
Every 2 hours.
Thereabouts.
And
sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. It just depended on how he was acting, because if he wasn't hungry after 2 hours, he wouldn't latch or take the bottle, So.
Do you recall her getting up in the middle of the night?
Yes.
And feeding?
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the time he'd sleep through the night. All my kids really did. So I didn't find that unusual at all. Most of the time he'd sleep through the night, but sometimes he would wake up in the middle of the night like any other baby, hungry, and then she'd just roll over and let him latch and feed. And that was most of the time in the middle of the night is when she wouldn't pump into the bottle to keep track of it. She would just top him on and let him feed until he was done.
So when you say he'd sleep through the night, then roughly how many hours straight would he sleep?
Let's see. Generally, he'd eat around 10 o'clock at night, and then around midnight. And he'd wake up around 2 for another feeding, and then after that, it wouldn't be until 6 or so in the morning that he would wake up on his own. Granted, if we woke up before that or whatever, we'd make sure that he'd wake up and eat and whatever, but...
And what time do you normally go to bed?
Around 4
a.m.? And what time would Amanda normally go to bed?
Around 4.
Around 4, okay. So as far as his use in the bathroom, approximately how many wet diapers, as in urine, do you think you would have per day?
Not sure exactly how many she changed. I would change 3 or 4 in a day. Usually about 2 poop diapers. I'm not sure how many she changed.
Okay.
So, that's just the numbers of what I dealt with.
Yeah.
So, on a daily, sometimes it was a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. It's just...
Gotcha. So, any medical issues that you saw with him, like, for example, maybe vomiting, fever, diarrhea, anything like that he had?
Nothing outside of the normal of, it was my 4th kid, so, I didn't notice anything that was unusual about that. He hadn't gotten a cold or anything that I'd noticed, or, didn't have diarrhea, he didn't, his poops were still getting to the point where they were starting to become, solid and whatnot, but that really takes until they get off of formula and onto baby food.
Correct, yeah.
But they were just starting to get to the point where they were hardening up and changing color and whatever, so.
Any over-the-counter medication that was given, or any medication at all that you know of?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. Did y'all supplement him with any additional food or liquids?
We give him water, besides, the breast milk and everything. I want to make sure he stayed hydrated and everything, because I know babies, if they're just strictly breastfeeding or eating formula, that's food, it's not water, so we give him water.
And how often would you give him water?
We'd keep a water bottle full, for him, but whenever he was acting like he was hungry or whatever, but didn't want the food, we would give him the water, and then he'd just drink it and calm down and whatever. And
how much water do you think you would drink at a time?
At a time, 2 to 3 ounces, just like he was eating food.
Okay. And how many times a day do you think you drink water?
Oh, shoot. I know, I'd make sure I give him water maybe 2 to 3 times a day. I'm not sure how many times she did, but I always had a water bottle right there with him, and just in case it was, he was looking for something besides food, so.
Okay. And was it water out of the faucet, or?
Yeah, it was water from the tap.
Okay. Any supplemental food that you guys would give him?
No.
Okay. Let's see what else I have here.
No, we didn't have any real cause to get the formula, because when we were keeping track of how much food he was getting, through the measurements on the bottle, and according to what we had been told for, child rearing in the past, he was getting more than was recommended, so, which little guy, I'd imagine he'd be a little bit more hungry. He's got to do some more developing than your average baby.
You may have answered this, but I can't remember. About how many times a day do you think Zeta was fed?
Well, like I said, I would feed him between 3 and 4 times a day. The rest of them, she would feed him.
Okay.
Sometimes if she was working, I would feed him every 2 hours, and after she'd bring me the milk bottle and whatever. And if she was working that day or whatever, and it'd just be me and my brother and the 2 boys hanging out. And
did she ever pump and store any of the milk?
Yeah, she pumped some and stored it there was only twice that she did that, but it's because she was, her breasts were hurting, and he was already full, and so she finished emptying herself out into a bottle, and we put it in the freezer and store it. I mean, Data never got the frozen milk, obviously, because she was still producing the whole time, so there was no need to, but we did have a bottle of just in case, or, well, towards the end we had 2 just in case in the fridge, or the freezer.
Gotcha, okay. Did you ever, you mentioned her breast would be engorged, that's basically what we call it.
Yeah,
full
that's
milk.
the term I was looking for.
Yeah.
Engorged.
Hey, it means the same thing.
Same, yeah.
I know what you're talking about, man. So, any leaking? Did you ever see her breast leak with milk? Okay.
Yeah, whenever they were engorged, it was just just start flowing, and she'd try to, whether he'd eaten or not, she'd try to get him to latch on and kind of help her do that, naturally. But if he didn't want it, like I said, she'd just naturally do it, like with her hands into a bottle.
Okay. Could you tell, or did she ever mention to you after Data would eat, did her breast feel less engorged?
Yeah.
Okay. And what would she say to you?
She would tell me that how her breasts were painful, and then when he would drink it, it would relieve the pressure that was there. Sometimes she would mention when they're engorged, she'd like, man, she'd be like, I wish I was hungry right now because my breath really, really hurt, and and so it's just a standard. Your breasts fill up and hurt, and
after either the baby would eat via the bottle or on her breast, could you tell that he was actually getting milk and he was sucking?
Oh yeah, I'd always have to. He'd always have a little
leaking out.
And
what about when he would breastfeed? I mean, once he was done eating on her breast, did he appear to be satisfied and full, and no more rooting around, or acted like he was wanting more or anything else?
I mean, on occasion he would. Usually he'd be fully content and satisfied by the time he would let go.
Gotcha.
So he'd at least get his little fill. There was, I think, a couple of times that we were all sitting there, and he just wanted more and more and more. But like I said, he's a little more hungry than your average baby.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you. So you mentioned that you and Amanda would go to bed about 4 a.m. What time would Data go to bed normally?
He, like I say, after about midnight is when he would start to want to go to sleep. Other than that, he just wanted to be up and hang out and be a part of the family and whatever's going on. And we didn't have a set bedtime for him yet because we had just got him. He's brand new, and at that point that he's at, it's like he can't really be away from us. It's completely 100% dependent. So, like I said, he'd eat around 10, and he'd eat again around midnight, and that's when he would really want to go to bed and go to sleep, and he'd take naps here and there all day. I mean, but when he actually was tired and wanted to sleep, it'd be around midnight.
Gotcha. Was there any prenatal care with Data?
No, we actually wound up having to move around a lot. There was some towards the very beginning, I think a couple of blood tests, and obviously the pregnancy tests and whatever, but we ended up having to move around a lot because we were trying to find someplace stable, to raise our kids up. And finally, my brother offered us this place, and since he owns the place, or his mom owns the place, and they've been trying to get us to move there for a long time, but we just didn't want to feel dependent on them or like we were using them for their space. Finally, we moved up there because we figured we heard all these great stories about, Oregon and how beautiful it is and how, nice the communities are. And so they finally convinced us to come up, and we come up and finally get the feeling of being stable, and started trying to arrange for our medical and stuff up here, and then Data came.
Gotcha.
So,
was this a planned pregnancy, or?
No.
No. Okay.
It wasn't planned. I mean, we were trying, yeah, but it wasn't planned.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like,
so after Thea was born, did you ever revisit the doctor?
no, we didn't have a vehicle to get in. She was in communication with the doctors. They did his 1 week over the phone. It's like a phone interview asking about how he is and whatever, and they said that we would tentatively schedule another appointment for him to go in because we don't have a vehicle. And the day that he passed away was the day we were supposed to go into the pediatrician.
Gotcha.
So we never got to make that appointment, obviously.
Yeah. And what was Data's sleeping arrangements?
He slept with us.
And your room was the one where had a mattress on the floor and the back, kind of the back. Where did Q sleep?
Actually, that little closet room there, we had arranged to be his little space, his bedroom.
Okay.
So that way he would have his own bed, his own.
Did Amanda have any complications with breastfeeding at all?
I mean, not really. She always produced the whole time. She had some swelling of some of her ducts, which I guess we found out from the hospital was she had an infection starting or something in one of her breasts. So when they tested her breast milk, they found that out. And we didn't know. I mean, you know, if we'd have realized that she was starting to get infected, we'd have gone and got some formula. We always have money set aside for emergency things, but there wasn't really any signs of it aside from, you know, they told us about it, and she was kind of like she'd get real sore when she was engorged, but I didn't see anything unusual. She was still producing, it was still the right color, it was still, you know, and I had tasted it. It tasted just like regular breast milk. I didn't taste anything funny or anything because she'd always ask me. She said, you know, my breast hurt or whatever, and I'm concerned. Like, what if an infection? What if this? What if that? And so she'd have me taste it, and to me, it didn't taste like there was anything wrong with it, or it just tastes like regular breast milk. And you know, but she was always the whole time concerned about it. You know, about breastfeeding, because she, like I said, she couldn't keep track of how much she was eating when he was actually eating off the breast, and she was always concerned that all these what-if questions or what could possibly happen.
Did you ever offer to go get formula?
Yeah.
And
actually, we were every time she would complain to me about her breast hurting or whatever, or any concerns she had, I'd always say, hey, no, well, we can get formula. And she would mention that she wanted to do it, you know, naturally, as long as her breast continued to produce normally. Mm-hmm. But it just made her nervous. Because, like I said, she couldn't keep track of it, and there's all this what if, like if you get an infection, you can't just look at it, and there's a little light that lights up and says you're infected, you know, like so.
How when Data was put to the breast, how long do you think you would eat?
It kind of varied depending on how fast she was, I guess, expelling milk. Sometimes if she was real engorged, it would only be maybe 10 minutes, before he'd get his fill. Other times, if she had done it into a bottle or whatever, he would only stay latched for 2 or 3 minutes, and then if he hadn't had a bottle and she was the one watching him while I was working, then I'm not actually sure how long he would stay on the breast, but during those times she would actually feed him when she was the one watching him and caring for him.
So I guess how often, or not how often, but would he eat from her breast more, or would he eat from the bottle?
From the bottle.
From the bottle more?
Yeah.
And roughly how much would he eat at a time?
Between 2 to 4 ounces, usually 3 out of the bottle, and then he would breastfeed after that.
Okay.
For for however long till he was full. But we made sure, because the doctors always recommend, 2 to 3 ounces, and then after a couple months, 3 to 4, and it just, the numbers go up after a couple weeks or whatever, and yada yada. So.
And who would predominantly feed him the most?
It was about 50-50, because like I said, we both work, so we take turns, taking care of kids, and then the other one would be working. So it's about 50-50, 50-50. Maybe I fed him a little bit more often because she makes more money than I do. So
I hear you.
So tip-based job, so it's not much point for me to work a full 30 hours if I'm not making enough,
True.
On those days, it'd just be, I'd tell her, hey, I'm not making nothing, do you want to work? And then she'd go and work and make her money, and I'd watch the baby and the oldest. So.
Gotcha.
This is a CrimeCircus presentation.
From when Data was born to when Data passed, do you notice any differences in between him or anything?
Well, I mean, obviously, he was just getting to the point he was becoming more aware of his surroundings. He was starting to be able to focus his eyes and stuff. Since he figured out he could move his arms and legs, he's been trying to crawl and get around and everything. I'm sure you've seen little babies try.
Sure.
And so there was nothing really unusual about him at all. I mean, he's a very happy baby and always smiling. And
so no issues at all with him. Until
he seemed just happy and healthy. There wasn't even issues that morning. We were supposed to be able to take him into the doctor's that morning and go. We had a tentatively scheduled appointment, which was, we told him we'd try and come in on that day, and they said just do a walk-in when you actually get here, because they knew we were waiting on a ride and whatever. But so when we woke up, we did the usual, the breastfeeding routine in the morning, and starting and feeding Eolus and getting his, I believe I was going to make him some eggs and whatever, but we were getting everything started, and Eolus hadn't woken up yet, so right after Data was breastfed, we went to step out for a cigarette because he laid back down and looked like he was going to go back to sleep, and he was all happy. We breastfed him, burped him, and he was all happy and content. And once he had actually basically drifted off into sleep, we watched him for a minute and went outside for maybe 2 minutes and shared a cigarette and went back in. And
so there was no visible issues that you saw up until that point?
No. Okay. It was really, really sudden, unexpected and scary. Like I learned after my first son, I learned infant CPR because just in case, and I learned how to do the emergency, like check their airways and do the 2 fingers, little pumps, and and how their lungs are about as strong as a sandwich bag and all that. And then and so immediately after I checked his airways and started doing the CPR, checking for pulse, all of that, and it was, oh God, it was horrible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There was nothing I could do. And my brother, even, he's been trained with that stuff too, and he came in and actually pushed me out of the way because I was doing all this while I was like super panicked because this is my baby, and so he came in and basically pushed me out of the way and took over and had me call 911. All this was just a matter of seconds, so.
Was there an issue or a man that was telling me about something about his eyes?
Yeah, he was doing a thing where he was trying to focus his eyes and look from side to side, but sometimes his eye would kind of go off a little bit. And my oldest son did the same thing real early on, so I didn't think anything of it. And because when they're starting to learn how to control their eyes and everything, but I guess she said she had seen it like a couple of times. I only kind of seen part of it, and to me, the part that I seen looked just like what my older son did. didn't look like he was, because there was nothing like indicating like with his body language or anything that was weird, or it was just his eye was like he'd be trying to look over here and then he'd kind of like wander off with his eye real quick and then go right back to normal. You know, it wasn't something that was like super concerning, because my oldest son did the same thing around his age, trying to figure out to control his eyes. And you know, I called actually a few of my friends and was asking them too, and they're saying their kids did the same thing. And
so could you actually see the white in his eyes and not see his pupil or any of that? I mean, was his eyes?
No, his eyes didn't like roll like in the back of his head or nothing. It would go off. From what I saw, it go off a little to the side, like he couldn't control it right.
Okay. When I talked with Amanda, she mentioned, I guess, one of the things that she did after Data was born, she would lactate for tips.
Yes.
Okay. So how often did she do that?
Well, that's after he was born. That's what her working became, instead of doing like the more sexual things and whatever, because she needed to lactate and get the milk into the bottle anyway, and you know, so it was that became sort of her thing while he was there. So I mean, she was constantly, when she'd stop when it got to however many ounces in the bottle and hand me the bottle and take the old one and then wash it and go and repeat process. So I mean, I constantly had a bottle to feed him. So, but would she always lactate into the bottle, or would she lactate anywhere else? Just into the bottle, unless if we were in the shower or something, because the hot water would just make her lactate, you know. But I mean, as far as self-lactating, I mean, always into the bottle, or Data was feeding, so that was okay. She didn't have she had those breast milk bags, but that only works if you have a pump, which we hadn't been able to get one yet, so she was still doing it all by hand. All by hand, okay. Yeah. Make sure I got all the questions answered for the doc. Let's go step out here and see if there's any more on my desk, and then I'll be back. I asked what is the report?
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure I get all these questions answered first, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you all that. Okay. I'm not going to leave you hanging, man. I promise you that. Alright. One other quick thing, the paddle that we found in your room is good and bad, I think.
That's for me and her.
Oh, okay. So, no, y'all didn't use it for disciplining cue or anything? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's our thing. Like I said, we don't generally even have sex on camera. Normally we're playing around with each other, doing like BDSM stuff, spank each other. But,
okay.
You know.
Do you know how quick after Data was born, how quick she went back to work?
Wasn't long. As soon as she started feeling good again. I mean, she would get back like right afterwards. There was just a couple days maybe, but she didn't like do anything when she was on camera while she was still healing and all that. It was just she'd sit and do the bottle thing, and because that was something she could actually do to make an income. But for the first few days, he was basically just completely attached to her the whole time. That's what,
Okay. And she mentioned that she had put an ad somewhere about selling her milk.
It was something that she was offering on the website. Nobody ever took her up on it. It was just something somebody had mentioned they'd be interested in possibly buying some of the breast milk at some point, and so it was just something she put on her account as an option, and nobody ever went for it because she made it ridiculously expensive. So, of course, because it's something that we need in our house and not something that we should be, sending away. So she made it some ridiculous price that she didn't think anybody would ever pay.
No, I hear you there. There's one other thing Oh, once data passed, how long after did she go back to work? Or either work or post any, nude or topless photos or videos or anything to...
We haven't posted any pictures aside from our advertisement for our shows that we've had on.
And where are them posted?
Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, but they were older ones, and then there was a screenshot of us sitting there on our cam show. So other than that, but after data passed, neither of us got online for a while. We're actually kind of hurting right now on the bills. We're a little short because we took a long time off because we couldn't handle being on. I think she went on, it was the next day or the day after to say, basically what had happened and that we wouldn't be on for a while.
Okay. So the computers that we seized from the search warrant, is there pictures and stuff stored on them, or do you have them stored somewhere else?
It's online storage. We've gone through a lot of computers, so we don't generally use them for picture storage. They get viruses or they break or the kids manage to get a hold of them. So that's another reason we don't generally store those pictures on our computers. So it was, first of all, computers get trashed, but so we have all online storage.
So like, where do you store yours?
I've got OneDrive. I've really got to organize it. I haven't figured out how to completely use it. So everything's all a jumble in there. There's all sorts of just like stuff from my work in San Francisco from years and years ago all the way on to, stuff that's recent. So
gotcha. And do you have to keep that like under email address, or how do you?
It's through your the Microsoft account.
Okay.
So it's like you get their what is the one that they use online? Not Yahoo. They use Hotmail. Yeah, that's the one. So you sign up with a Hotmail account and you can access it.
Oh, so you have a Hotmail account then?
Yeah. I don't ever use it. I signed up for Xbox Live way back.
Oh yeah.
And Facebook with the same one. Other than that, I have no idea. It's probably full of God knows how much spam. And,
yeah.
Oh my God.
So what's your email address?
Well, that one is Osmodius at Hotmail. I don't use it.
Osmodius Chrono?
Chronos, yeah. It's like, I can spell it for you. Yeah. You got a pen right there? Yeah. I just for you. OSMODIUS and Chronos, CRONOS, which is God of time, obviously. Chronos is time. Forget what Osmodius is. It's some demon or another that I heard the name of on a TV show and I liked it.
So it's OSMODIUSCRONOS.
Yeah. That's like, when I was real young, I think I was watching Charmed back when that show was on. It was one of the names of the bad guy.
Osmodius, well, you taught me something today. Osmodius Chronos.
Okay, Chronos is I believe it's the Greek god.
Okay. So here's the deal. So I've met with the state medical examiner, and I've also met with a pediatric doctor from Dornbecker. It's like the Children's Hospital in Portland. And, I'll tell you the same thing that I told Amanda. Based on a lot of the information that you and her have both given us, there's a lot of it that I can prove to be false. Okay? The cause of death for your son was starvation. Okay? He didn't have an ounce of fat on him. He had deteriorated so much. Yes. So he had deteriorated so much that he had started basically living off of his muscles. He had no muscles. When he died, or when he was born, he weighed 5 pounds, 12 ounces. That night we took him to the morgue. He weighed 5 pounds, 7 ounces. And when they did the autopsy, he weighed 5 pounds, 3 ounces. So during that time, he lost basically 9 ounces.
I mean, her milk was no good.
Well, I'm not saying her milk was no good. I'm saying that he wasn't getting enough of it. As far as the infection, what she told you was a lie about an infection. She's the one that originally told us she had an infection. She was the one that told us that her milk ducts had clogged. So we ran tests when we took her to Mercy based on what she had told us. So we took her milk, ran a test on her milk. We took her white blood cell count to see if she had any infection, because that is what she told us. We never told her she had an infection. Her milk was fine. There was no parasites. There was no nothing in her milk. Her white blood cell count was perfect. And she even told us that 3 weeks prior, she hadn't even been able to produce milk, and that her milk had just started coming in within the past 3 days.
Yeah, during that time, I was feeding them out of the bottle. Like, she would pump in there. I mean, that's why I was... Oh, my God.
What I'm saying is,
Okay.
his intestines were completely empty. There was nothing in his intestines at all. I mean, you can look at him from when he was born to when he passed. If you put the two pictures side by side, you can look at him and tell he's not a healthy baby. I mean, you can look at him and tell that he was underweight, or he had lost a lot of weight from the time he was born.
Yeah, I know that they're supposed to lose a little bit of weight, but not...
So, I mean, did he look like he lost weight to you?
Yeah, he looked like he had lost some, but he didn't look super unhealthy to me. I've been feeding him out of the bottle, and...
Well, within the way the baby works, they're supposed to be back up to their birth weight within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks. And it had been about,
6 weeks, almost 7. And he only lost half an ounce in the hospital. So he didn't lose a whole lot of weight in the hospital. I mean, I've talked to the doctors, I've talked to the lactation consultant that worked with you guys, or not worked with you, but just checked on you guys to make sure the milk was producing, make sure the baby was being able to latch on, make sure, she could hear the sucking sounds and all that. And, the time that you guys were in the hospital, there was no issues. I don't know really what was going on while you guys were at home, but, without a doubt, based on the state medical examiner's medical opinion and the pediatric doctor at Dornbecker, Data was not getting any food. And it's not something that just happens overnight. I mean, it's a prolonged period, to where their body gets in that position to where they're not able.
Well, I know at least while she was working, she would provide me with the bottles and everything to feed him, and I can't believe that.
But, the test that we ran on the milk,
it was good.
For what they tested for, to see if there was any parasites or anything in the milk, there was none. And her white blood cell count was, perfect. It's between 4.63 to 11 is the normal range, and hers was 4.9 something. So, there was no signs of any infection, and that's what she had told us, that she had an infection, and that her milk ducts had clogged. And then that's when you mentioned to go get formula, and she's like, no, I think my milk is coming back. And as far as the water, no doctor recommends water. None. And at one point she said she's given, mashing up peas and giving it the pea juice. There is no nutritional value in water or peas.
Right.
When a baby is born, and a baby is eating, the only thing he needs is milk, whether it be breast milk or whether it be a approved formula.
This is a CrimeCircus
That's all he
presentation.
needs to survive until he gets to a certain age, and then that's when you can start producing or supplementing the cereal, and then continuing on up to the baby food, and then then at some point water. But
No, I know. All my kids, I always would let them, ever since when they were, if they ever showed interest in any food, I let them taste it, or whatever. But I can't believe it.
and if you saw him that he had lost weight, basically, and was not back to where he was, why didn't you call the doctor?
She was the one that was supposed to be, in charge of communicating with the doctor and all of that stuff. And she had told me she'd been calling him, and
She hadn't. I have only 2 contacts they had was the appointment that y'all no-showed for, the first 2-week appointment. And then she made another appointment. And you called, or somebody called and canceled it. They were the only 2 contacts that the doctor had. The whole phone call thing, that didn't replace an appointment. I mean, the baby needs to be seen. I mean, obviously there were some issues.
right. I was going off of what she was telling me because I didn't know.
But Michael,
I
know, but you're the dad. You're just as responsible to make sure that baby's well-being as her. I mean, if you saw that that Data wasn't gaining weight and losing weight, you should have picked up the phone. Because, I mean, like you said, this was your 4th kid. So, I mean, you've been through it 3 times already. You have a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and Hugh, who's 2. So you know what for their weight and stuff like that, if they're not as much as you say he was eating, he should have been gaining a ton of weight.
Yeah, and I honestly can't speak for the times that I was working or out of the house. I can only speak on the times that I was feeding him. And
Well, I can tell you Data was not getting enough food. And according to his intestines and his body, it appears he wasn't getting any food. And I'm pretty sure this probably happened from the time you guys got home and slowly, gradually
built up
until where Data just gave up. He had nothing else to go off of. Because he had nothing in there to keep him going. I mean, I'm sure there was some changes in the last couple of days where, he may have been quieter, wasn't fussy as much, wasn't crying.
Yeah, he was, he was never really fussy and
Correct.
cried a lot.
But, I'm sure his demeanor changed.
Yeah, that last day, he was, pretty quiet, but he, it just wanted to just lay with us and whatever. And
I think Commando was on that routine to where he was getting fed that often and that much. I mean, if he was, I'm not a doctor, but I would think Data would still be here with us today. And, he just wasn't getting enough food or eating food.
I know he was getting some, but clearly not enough. That's come up.
So, why did you call the doctor? As soon as you saw that, why didn't you call?
I always kept telling her to call, and I just believed that she was, I wanted to believe that she was calling and staying in contact, at the very least, with the doctor. And she was telling me she was. And
I talked to the pediatrician the day after Data passed.
I'm sure if I had called him, he would have probably told me that too.
So how much weight do you think David lost from just, when you noticed it? I mean, how smaller was he?
It wasn't too much smaller, and it seemed to me like he was basically staying around the same weight. He's so little, it's hard to tell. We don't have a scale,
Correct. But I mean, at 5 pounds, 12 ounces when he was born, I mean, you lose a couple ounces, you're going to be able to tell. But for him to have lost 9 ounces?
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight. And you seem like a, pretty with the guy that, you got some smarts about you. You can't tell me you didn't notice that, man.
No, I noticed that's part of why the whole time I suggested we get formula just in case, because, it's always something good to have in the house anyway, and...
Well, I mean, if you saw that something was, that Dada wasn't looking the same, and she told you no because she thought her milk was coming back, why would you take no for an answer? I mean, this is your kid. If she's not seeing the same things that you're seeing, then at some point you got to step up, be the man of the house, and be like, look, this is my kid too. He's not looking like he was looking when he was born. There's something going on here. We need to call the doctor. We need to try some formula, but we need something.
Yeah. And it really didn't help everyone who kept asking for a freaking ride, kept telling us no. So, that's... But, we could have called, I guess, the ambulance, I guess, if need be.
But, and here's the thing on that. I understand what you're saying, but, if I have a kid, and if my kid was in that situation, I wouldn't take no for an answer. She was able to find a job or arrive at court the next day.
Yeah, we had to go knock door to door to find somebody, but...
Yeah, and if you would have did that with Data, you may still be here today. This is your kid. This is your own blood. And if there's something serious going on with him, there's no way in hell I'd take no for an answer. I'd knock on every house door in Glendale, or worst case scenario, 911. That's what y'all called when she was going into labor. And if there was an issue with your kid, with Data, then I would have called 911 then. You saw a decline in his weight. Knowing that, as much as you're saying that he was eating and knowing that he should be putting on weight, but yet he's losing weight, then that should have been a red flag right there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Amanda, she can't take any responsibility for it. All she did is sit here and lie. Talking about how she fed their baby, how she didn't notice anything different other than the day before he started acting differently. But she didn't want to jump to conclusions, because she said y'all did the same thing with Q, and they basically said that she was a hypochondriac or whatever.
Yeah, with Q, we actually took him in a lot, because it was her first, and she was real nervous about it.
But when you saw that he wasn't getting fatter or getting better, you should have made that phone call. And I think, I know Amanda wasn't producing enough milk. I know.
And I fed him every time I got that bottle of milk.
Well, I don't think it was the 2 to 4 ounces like you said, though.
Oh, it was. The bottles I was getting was about 2 to 3 ounces.
Was it marked?
Yeah, it had the little measurements on the side.
And here's why I say I know he wasn't getting enough milk, for one. Because he died on the 22nd. Amanda said she did some self-lactating in the shower that night to relieve the pressure because her breasts were gorged. So she hadn't pumped or did anything probably within 12 to 24 hours from the time we went to your house and I brought her to Mercy. I had her pumped for 15 minutes. Okay? And if her breasts would have been gorged and producing milk like it should, she should have filled the bottles up. She barely produced, what was it, about 1.5 ounces in 15 minutes, which is, I guess, a normal feeding, roughly about a normal feeding according to the lactation consultant.
Yeah, I know she's coming to me about every 2 hours when she was working with the bottle with, 2-3 ounces in it. So that's, but,
well, the baby should be, according to the people I talked with, the baby should be fed 8 to 10 times a day. And I can honestly say that didn't happen. Nowhere near that. Because this doesn't happen overnight. To where the body shuts down and, data starts feeding on its muscles, just trying to survive to the point where...
No, and I know how horrible that is. When I was a teenager, I got pretty close to that myself. So I know it's a horrible, horrible way to go.
Yeah. Those last couple days, he suffered tremendously. I can only imagine what he went through. That'd be my worst nightmare. All right. All right, Michael, you need to go and stand up for transit on your back, okay? You're going to be arrested for murder by abuse. And that's the same charge that she got. Go and undo your hands real quick for me. Okay. You should have made that phone call. You saw it for yourself, and you're kind of pointing the blame to her that you thought she was doing it, or she was the one that was supposed to do it.
I'm not trying to point blame. That was how we worked out the responsibilities. She was supposed to be the one to make the doctor calls, and apparently you're telling me she didn't. So, I just wanted to believe that she was doing what she was supposed to.
And she never even mentioned that she called the doctor at all, other than the 1 week when they called, and then when she called to cancel the appointment.
Strange question, man. Can I get a hug from you? This is...
Man,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to, but no, I can't.
No, it's okay. I understand. That's why I figured I would ask, because that's...
I know this is hard.
Horrible.
I know it's horrible, and it's hard to stomach, but, the fact of the matter...
Can I sit down for a second?
Sure. Yeah, sit down. The fact of the matter is, you and Amanda are responsible for his death. There's no one else to blame. There's no medical complications that he had. The statement of her examiner said, she hadn't got the blood and stuff back yet, but she doesn't think that anything's going to come back negatively. And if it does, it still doesn't change the fact that you never took him to the doctor. So say you did have some medical complication, then you guys still wouldn't have known about it. Because he never followed up with the doctor. He never took his guidance.
So, some water or something?
Yeah, it's just my
Thank you. Can I get you to pull this hood off of my head? I'm getting really dizzy, so.
Any more?
I think I'll be alright. I did it loud. Sorry, it's all hitting me.
Alright. Do you have anything? Pockets or anything?
Wallet, cell phone, lighter, cigarettes.
So, I mean, based on what
There's a glass jar. Okay.
Based on what I've told you,
I think I'm gonna go in shock. I'm gonna deal with it. I'm sure that's fairly.
Honestly, I don't know, man. I mean, based on what I told you, though, as far as everything that we saw and the medical examiner's autopsy, I mean, do you feel that you and Amanda are the ones responsible? Huh?
I don't feel that I am responsible. I'm not gonna say that I feel that she's responsible, because I know, at least while she was working, I was feeding him every 2 hours or so,
But
about 2 to 3 ounces. So,
But Michael, we can prove that wasn't the case. If you were feeding him, at least on your part, and you was feeding him however many times a day you told me, I don't think Dad would be dead.
I mean, the majority of the time, he was with her.
But you told me earlier it was 50-50.
Thereabouts, yeah,
But if you're feeding him 50% of the time, and you knowing that he's getting food 50% of the time, and she's feeding the other 50%, and she's saying that he's getting food every time that she feeds him, then one or both of you guys are not telling the truth, because I can prove he wasn't getting fed enough. And you guys are both responsible for his well-being.
maybe a little bit more water. I'm getting really dizzy.
Thanks so much for watching. Stephen was sentenced to 7 years in prison, and his adult internet star girlfriend received 10 years. Please consider joining the Crime Circus Patreon to help support the show. It's free or paid, the choice is yours.